Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into one of the toughest nuts to crack, actually innovating in healthcare. It's a field where brilliant ideas that could really change lives, often go to die. We're going to look at why that happens, and more importantly, how a structured process, not just a stroke of luck, is the absolute key to creating breakthroughs that actually work and last.
So let's just start with the big, obvious question. Why? Why do so many of these promising innovations, the apps, the new devices, the redesigned services, why do they so often end up just collecting dust on a shelf? It's a huge frustration, and I bet you've seen it, whether you're a creator, a clinician, or a patient just waiting for something better.
And this really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Success is not random. It's not like winning the lottery. It is the direct result of a structured, repeatable process. When you follow a proven method, you dramatically, and I mean dramatically, increase your chances of building something that people will actually want, use, and value.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll talk about why having a plan is totally non-negotiable. Then we're going to dive deep into the design thinking framework and its 5 essential phases. After that, we'll zoom out a bit to see how this all fits into the bigger innovation picture, and we'll wrap up with a simple toolkit you can start using pretty much right away.
All right, first up, in a world that's moving a million miles an hour, why on earth would we slow down to bother with a formal plan?
Well, the answer is pretty simple. Healthcare is just way too complex to leave things to chance. I mean, you've got so many different people involved, patients, doctors, administrators, plus all the regulations and the incredibly high stakes. Just trying to wing it is basically a recipe for disaster. A structured process gives you a reliable path, a roadmap through all that complexity.
And that brings us to a really powerful solution that's been adopted all over the world. Let's dig into the design thinking framework.
So what is this thing, really? At its absolute core, design thinking is a human-centered approach. That means before you even think about the cool tech or the business model, you start with people. It is all about developing a deep, genuine empathy for your users, and then using that understanding to experiment and build solutions with them, not just for them. Big difference.
And this is where you can see just how powerful this framework is. It's incredibly versatile. This isn't just about, designing a better scalpel or a new app. It's being used to totally redesign the entire patient experience in a hospital, or to completely rethink how clinical teams work together. It can be used for a single product or a whole organization.
Okay, so we know what it is, but how does it actually work? How do you do it? Let's break down the engine of design thinking. Its 5 essential phases.
Here they are: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Now, I know, it looks like a nice, neat, straight line, but you're going to see in a minute that it's really more of a cycle, a loop. So let's walk through each one, starting with the one that holds the whole thing up. Phase 1, empathize. And this is all about genuine understanding, not just making assumptions. Let's take telemedicine as an example. You have to get inside the patient's head. They might be feeling this tension, right? On one hand, I love how convenient this is, but on the other, I'm really worried the quality of care won't be as good. That conflict right there, that's gold. That's a critical insight.
But you can't just stop with the patient. For an idea to actually work in the real world, it has to work for everyone involved. A doctor using this new telemedicine system has totally valid concerns, like, what if I miss something important on a video call? You have to hear that, understand it, and solve for it.
And honestly, this is where so many innovations just fall apart. They completely forget about the people who make the system run every single day. A new tool that doesn't play nice with the existing software just creates more headaches for the clinic staff. It's doomed from the start. True empathy means mapping out the needs of every single person in that ecosystem.
So after all that listening, we get to phase 2, define. This is where you take all those juicy empathy insights and you crystallize them into a clear problem statement. And the key here is this "how might we" phrasing. It's so powerful because it's optimistic, it's open-ended, it frames a challenge to be solved, not a solution to be built.
Here's another perfect example. See how the question isn't, how can we build an AI scribe? That's a solution. The question is focused on the human need. How can we reduce the documentation burden? When you define the problem this way, you're not locked into one path. You've just opened the door to a whole universe of creative possibilities.
Okay, next up, ideate. This is the fun part, the brainstorming phase, but it comes with some really crucial rules. The most important one is to defer judgment. No buts, no "that'll never work." Not yet.
You want to encourage wild, crazy, even impossible-sounding ideas. You build on what other people say. Right now, the goal is pure quantity, because somewhere in that giant pile of ideas is the seed of a breakthrough.
From that mountain of ideas, we move to Phase 4, prototype. This is all about making your ideas tangible and real. But, and this is key, you don't jump right to building a fully functional app. No way. You start small, cheap, and fast with low-fidelity prototypes, like simple paper sketches or storyboards. The whole point is to test your biggest assumptions before you invest any serious time or money.
Which brings us right to the final phase, test. You take that rough prototype, you put it in front of real users, and then you just watch. You listen, you learn. This is where your beautiful assumptions meet cold, hard reality. And the feedback you get here is pure gold. It fuels the whole cycle. You learn something that sends you back to build a better prototype, or maybe to come up with new ideas, or maybe even to realize you need to redefine the problem altogether. It's a loop.
So those 5 phases are an incredibly powerful engine for coming up with great ideas. But it's really important to understand that they are just one part of a much larger journey. The journey from a good idea to something that has a real-world impact at scale.
This table kind of lays out the whole 8-stage journey. And you can see that the design thinking stuff we just talked about, ideation, concept development, prototyping, that's all right there at the beginning. But look what has to come next. You have to do a feasibility assessment. Like, can we actually build this thing? You have to validate the market. Will anyone actually pay for it? Then you get into business planning, running a small pilot, and finally, scaling it up. This is the industrial strength process that turns a creative spark into a real, sustainable solution.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground, so let's boil all of this down into a simple, powerful toolkit that you can take away and start using today.
Here are the 5 big principles. 1. Always start with deep empathy for your users. 2. Use what you learn to define the real problem you're trying to solve, not just the symptoms. 3. Go wide. Generate tons of ideas before you narrow down on one. 4. Build to think. Test your ideas fast, learn from them, and don't be afraid to be wrong. And 5, remember that this whole creative process has to fit within that larger journey to scale and sustainability. You know, when you boil it all down, the most important takeaway is this. Innovation isn't some kind of magic. It's not an art reserved for a chosen few. It is a skill you can learn and a process you can follow. This framework gives you a powerful and proven place to start. So that really just leaves one final question for you to think about. What problem will you solve first?